Carlos is president of United Services and Trust Corporation, headquartered in Nashville, Tennessee. He's been there since 1976. United Services and Trust is a consulting firm specializing in corporate trust services, business consulting, and debtor-creditor relations. The firm's primary services are capital formation and business reorganizations. Mr. Lara has held all the required licenses as a registered broker-dealer and member of the National Association of Security Dealers, or NASD. His background makes him a regular speaker at credit management symposiums and conferences. During the 1980s, he taught classes on credit management to credit executives seeking the ABCE accreditation, now the Certified Credit Executive, or CCE, for the National Association of Credit Management. He is a passionate advocate of Austrian economics and frequently writes and speaks on the subject. In 2010, he co-authored How Privatized Banking Really Works with economist Bob Murphy. Together they published the Lara Murphy Report, a special online economic research and reporting newsletter for financial professionals. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome L. Carlos Lara to the stage.
Thank you, John. Thank you a lot for that introduction. I want to say this with as much meaning as I can, and that is that you'll never know the good feeling that I feel just seeing all of you here, listening to all of this. I mean that sincerely. I have not met everybody yet, but my intent is to make sure I at least shake everybody's hand before I leave here tomorrow. I'm glad to be here. As John said, I'm a businessman from Nashville, Tennessee. I sit on the board of the Nelson Nash Institute, and I'm also one of the co-creators of the IBC Practitioner Program for financial professionals. And I am looking for a few good men and women from the financial services industry to join me and Robert Murphy, David Stearns, Nelson Nash, and the entire Freedom Advisor team to help build the 10%. Bottom line, that's what I'm all about. Now, I'm going to say a little bit more about that in just a little bit. Right now, I want to at least emphasize for you why that's so important. You see, I believe, and so do my associates, that we have the privilege of sharing the most important message to the general public than anyone has ever had the privilege of doing. At least since the last 40 years. 4 decades of total financial confusion, financial stranglehold on Americans, and just plain financial turmoil. Our message is vital simply because when it's understood and implemented, it brings immediate and positive benefits to American households and businesses. If there is any hope of ever changing the current thinking or no thinking into the right kind of thinking, It's in the message of Austrian economics. Sound money and sound banking as exemplified in IBC. In essence, it is all of us educating as many people as possible on how privatized banking really works. I don't have a lot of time to expand on some of those things that I've just said. What I want to do is spend a little time showing you something that I was researching just this past 3 weeks ago in preparation for an article that I just finished writing for the Lara Murphy Report. It caught my attention. It made me think. I'm going to show it to you, see if it does the same thing for you. We've been talking a lot about thinking exercises. But this report that I was looking at came out in the spring of 2015, which is earlier this year, but it's based on 2012 data. It came from the Internal Revenue Service. And the data they were pulling this information from was the 1040s of that year. 136 million returns came in. Now that, right off the bat, got me thinking. Because we've already said there's 300 plus million people in the United States. Why only 136 million reports? Well, then I started to think about it. It's okay, well, generally people file their 1040s as a couple, right? So that took in quite a bit of people. And I remember several years ago doing another research just on the whole demographics of our country and found out there's 80 million Americans that are under the age of 18. Babies, teenagers, those fellows don't file. 1040. And then, of course, we've got the mentally ill, the disabled, people in nursing homes, and I guess just people that just flat don't file, right? Okay, so that started to make up the difference. And I guess I should also include that some people that are just permanently unemployed, right? So I'm looking at this, but what was really interesting about the report is that for the first time ever, the IRS shared with us what the people at the very top of the ladder, what kind of money they make. I really like seeing that. Where's Bruce? Okay, Bruce, I'm talking about the top 0.001% of the people. They told us how much they make. Quite interesting. This is an elite bunch. In fact, there's only 1,365 individuals in this group. Out of all that. That's top notch. To get into the ranks here, you have to make at least $62 million or more just to get in here. And the average AGI, which we said yesterday was the adjusted gross income, is $161 million. Boy, there's a lot of money in here. In fact, there are 545 billionaires in this group. I was thinking, I was just thinking, looking at this, incredible. Who are these people? Well, we kind of know who 400 of them are, right? Don't we all go check Forbes and find out who's on the list? Okay, well, we know that who's on there? Gates, right? Gates is on there. Gates is at 76 billion. And of course, Mr. Buffett's in there. And he is at 62 billion. And, the list. Now, to get into this rank right here, you had to make at least 1.7 billion. So look, 145 billionaires didn't make the cut. But I wondered, who else is in here? So I started looking and researching. And I found out that the CEOs of the S&P, 500 companies, some of those guys made it in here. But it was good to know that the average income for these guys was $13.5 million. Some of them obviously made a lot more because remember, it takes $62 million to get in here. So some of them were in there. The CEOs of private equity firms actually outranked the guys on top. Some of those guys pulled in $300 million. There were some lawyers in this group, mostly mergers and acquisition lawyers. And then, interestingly, there were 25 sort of very visible type of people, visible mostly to our youth of our country. Now here I'm talking about, let's keep writing with this. We're talking about actors. We're talking about personalities. We're talking about athletes. Musicians. Okay? Some of these people, 25 of them, made it into this list. For example, Robert Downey Jr., he pulled in $80 million this year. He's in there. Do we know Katy Perry? How old is that girl? $135 million. Howard Stern, $95 million. He's in there. Floyd, what'd you say? Noise. Floyd Merriweather. Is he a boxer? Yeah. Does anybody know James Patterson? Gosh, everybody knows. $95 million. He's an author. $95 million. So these people made enough money to rank with this special group. But the guys that really pulled in the money, anybody want to guess? They were the CEOs of hedge funds. Yep, these guys took the top pay, averaging $535 million. That's right. Top dogs in this elite group. In fact, the total of 25 hedge fund managers, their total earnings was more than all of the CEOs of the Fortune 500 companies, their total. This was interesting to me, just to put it out there. But the thing that really got to me was that the average tax rate for these guys in this group was 17.6%. All that money, and that's their average tax rate. Now, the IRS report also gave us some other figures we hadn't seen before, and they gave us the numbers for the top 0.1%. Now, to get into this group, you had to earn $12 million. Oops. $12 million. And the average pay for these guys was $36 million. Then we have, just a little underneath that, we have the top 1%, 0.1%, the top 0.1%. And these guys, to get in here, had to make at least $2 million. And their average AGI was $7.5 million. And then we come to the enviable 1%. Now, we've known about these guys for a while. They always gave us those numbers. The 1%. This is the one that's always in the media. This is the one they're always talking about. These guys got it really made. To get into this group, you have to make $435,000. And the average AGI for these guys is $1.5 million. That's the 1%. Now, just in this little section of the 1%, there is 13.5 million people. Just in that section right there. Obviously, there's less people here, and we've already said there's only 1,365 here. And these guys in this enviable spot, their average tax rate was 22.8%, and they paid 38% of all income taxes. you start to see who's holding up this system. Now, obviously, after the 1%, we have the 5%. We've got the 10%. We've got the 25%. And then, of course, we have the top 50%. Now, to get into the top 50%, all you have to make is $36,000. And the average income here is $118,000. The top 50% would include basically this group, this group, this group, all these folks. And they paid 97% of all income tax. And that came out of 66 million returns. 66 million out of 136 million. And so we have roughly 70 million returns that came in that paid the remaining 3%. Now, this made me think, just looking at it, just seeing it like this. I would bet you money that these guys right here, these guys right here, these people right here, right here, right here, even here, or government qualified plans. And a lot of them are in a financial stranglehold because they've lost control of their money. Do you get the picture? There's your market. Who do you want to go after? Now, here's the thing. I started researching this in comparison to this. Most of the papers that I found on it were telling me that the reason this is so low is because capital gains tax right now is relatively low. But the biggest reason that it's low is because a lot of these guys don't even file an income tax statement because they borrow on their wealth to live on. Let me ask you something. How much money do you think it takes for Warren Buffett to live on? What would you say? I mean, he can only eat so much food and drive a car, maybe an airplane. What would you say? $1 million, let's give it. $1 million a year, all right? If he walks into any commercial bank in the United States and asks for an interest-only loan, is any bank going to refuse him? I'm serious. Any bank going to turn him down? No. Why? He's got the money. Say he went back the next year. Say he paid the interest off. He's going to write it off anyway. He went in again, same bank. He borrows another $1 million to live on, interest only. Is that bank going to refuse him? No. Why? He's got the money. How old is he? 70? How long is he going to live? Let's give him 20 years. Say he went, for the next 20 years, he goes into that same bank, borrows $1 million. Never pays the other $1 million, he just keeps borrowing. On the 20th year, he goes in. Do you think that bank is going to say, Mr. Buffett, are you ever going to pay these loans down? I mean, you've got $20 million racked up here. Now, when he dies, his estate, we'll settle that, of course. But no, they're not going to deny that. The neat thing about this, privatized banking allows us to do the very same thing as the very rich. Now, by that I mean that the wealth stored inside of these banking policies, no matter what it is, allows individuals like you and me to have no hassle borrowing and live like the Warren Buffetts of the world. That's the message here. %10 of the population moving their money, especially if it's in one direction. Think about where it's leaving and where it's going. That's going to make a powerful statement. If you're taking that, moving it out of the volatile commercial banking sector, where there's risk, and into the conservative, safe, insurance sector, into banking policies that come with immediate and guaranteed benefits, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. If you can just see it, see that movement. This gentleman is Ludwig von Mises, probably the most important economist in history, also a member of the Austrian school. He wrote one of the best books, Human Action. Human Action. Basically, this man broke down all of the attributes involved in the act of humans acting. It's a great book. I dare you to read it. It's a challenge. But inside, I found these lines. They made such an impression on me, what they say, that I took these lines and we condensed them into one sentence and we put them on the back of the book that Robert and I wrote. It's almost become a slogan with us. It simply says that the masses determine the course of history. But its initial movement must start with the individual. Individuals with great ideas, because ideas will spread like viruses. We have this gentleman, Malcolm Gladwell, who wrote this wonderful little book to make us realize that. I want you to look at this graph very carefully. It's actually, it's actually part of a scientific study that was done by the scientists at Resner Polytechnic Institute of New York. It's sort of a strange looking graph, but just focus with me, if you will, on the small ball that you see on there. Do you notice that there's just a few red dots on that ball? Just a few of them. And then the ball in the center, notice that it has a little bit more red balls. And then notice the big ball and see that is basically covered with red balls, no green balls left. And all this happened as it was moving up the graph. So in this study, what these scientists were trying to tell us is that when an unshakable belief is held by the minority, just 10% of the minority, it eventually becomes the belief of the majority. Now, there's many examples in history that back this up. I like to point to the Judeo-Christian belief, which started just with a small band of individuals, and they changed the thinking of the the most powerful empire in the world at that time. In fact, that belief and that thinking became the foundation of our entire Western civilization. So it can happen. And so this is why we need to join together, because we can change monetary policy. We can influence the public in a very big way. But it's going to take the right kind of people, the right kind of financial professionals, because these are the individuals that talk to people about their money. Not everybody's going to fit here. We want those that understand what we're saying. We hope it's all of you. It all starts with us educating people on how to become their own bankers. Thank you.